Good morning. First of all, I want to commend everybody for having the interest and the energy to pursue these issues. They're very important. I'm hopeful that in another 100 years from the Deepwater Horizon accident, that there will be similar interest and willingness and energy to try to make additional changes and continue to improve on what is already there. I guess my role on this panel is to give you a bit of a perspective into the lives of the families that have been affected by not just this disaster, but other disasters in the past. This is just a timely instance. It happened 11 months ago, yesterday. A year is coming up. I can't believe it's been that long. My brother was a mud engineer for MI SWACO. It's a contractor for BP. He tested drilling mud levels and consistency, and he did his job well, as far as I know. I don't know a whole lot about the oil industry. I didn't learn a whole lot until this happened. He was one of 11 men that were killed that day. There were countless others that were injured as a result of likely gross negligence on the part of a lot of different companies. Gordon left behind a family. He left behind a wife. He left behind a son who will be 3 on Monday. His wife was also 8 months pregnant when it happened. She gave birth a month after this accident happened. Maxwell Gordon will turn 1 on May, I think 22nd. So they've had a lot of challenges over the last year, and I guess I'm trying to give all of you a little bit of perspective into what families have to deal with when things go wrong and bad decisions are made and people don't follow the rules. They've endured a lot of heartache. We've all endured a lot of heartache, and a lot of times I didn't really consider this when before this happened. I'd read a newspaper article, or I would see some coverage on the news about some horrible incident that happened and killed several people. It's not just those people; it's their families and their extended families that it affects. And it, from my personal perspective, I see things a lot differently now. As to what happened that day, there's been a lot of news coverage about it. There's been a lot of investigatory work done to uncover what happened. And to this day, I really don't know, not the least of which reason is that I have limited knowledge about the oil industry. There have been a lot of great news pieces that have been done. The New York Times did a great article a little while back, maybe a month or two ago, that did a timeline. But I guess the bottom line is that Gordon didn't have anything to do with this. He was simply doing his job, trying to finish his shift and get back for the birth of his son. Likewise, many of his coworkers didn't have much to do with this. It was decisions that were made by people he had no control over, who contributed to his death and to the death of many others. And that's what bothers me the most, is that you can go to work, try to put food on your table for your family, and people who you have no control over are making decisions to affect your lives and your livelihood and the lives of your family. I'm pessimistically sure that there's not a whole lot of people, not a whole lot that we're going to find out about what actually happened. There's too much money involved. I do want to comment. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit because I have a lot of things I wanted to say. But Dr. Phillips mentioned the workers' compensation laws. In this instance, the exclusive remedy for my brother's family is a maritime law, federal maritime law called the Death on the High Seas Act. And in instances where people were injured on the rig, it's the Jones Act. These laws were passed in the 1850s, and the 1920s when the Jones Act was passed. And in my brother's instance, the only recovery that his family can get from the companies that are responsible for his death are the loss of his paycheck, his future lost wages. In the context of any litigation that ensues related to his death and his family's, he's a paycheck. He's not a father. He's not a husband. He's nothing more than a paycheck. And so this is just a small example, a limited example to, where we are. And nobody, I don't know if anybody in this room would realize that until it happens to you. And so we're trying to make changes to those laws, and I've been up to D.C. a number of times to try to get Congress to pass things that would change that. It got close. We almost got unanimous consent in the Senate to pass something until one senator held it up. So there are a lot of instances where things are still unfair. And unfortunately, it takes disasters like this to change laws. And as to incentives and disincentives, and unfortunately, in this instance, BP and other companies have they have a lot of money riding on this, and the only way that they're going to make changes is if they have an incentive to make those changes. That's going to include regulations, the changes in laws, requirements that they have to do as far as safety, as well as increases in liability exposure. And as to the Death on the High Seas Act and the Jones Act, that's exactly what we're trying to do. I guess as far as my final observations, even small decisions or mistakes can lead to devastating consequences. While all these companies that are responsible for employing these workers can likely recover, in many instances the families can't. Stafford and Max have a long life to live, and they will likely never remember their father, and a lot of people are going to have to step up, and it impacts a lot of people a lot of different ways, not the least of which are these two young boys. I guess one thing that I hope that all of you take from this is never forget who you're working for or fighting for and trying to make changes for, because it's very important. It certainly is to me. As far as incentives in the form of more strict government regulations or laws, increasing liability exposure will cause. That's the only way that they're going to make changes to worker safety. Getting Congress to act to make these changes, increasing the exposure to companies when they make these bad decisions. That's how we're going to make these changes. I testified before the House Natural Resources Committee last week, and it was in the context of issuing more permits for moratorium, or issuing more permits for deepwater drilling. To this point, almost a year has passed, and not a single piece of legislation has been passed to make any changes to worker safety. Yet they're having a hearing on taking up the moratorium and issuing more permits. And one of the Texas congressmen said that BP was a bad actor in this instance. Why should we punish the good actors? Well, and he also made the comment, I understand this is a horrible circumstance and horrible disaster, but we can't just stop everything. Well, what is it? What has to happen before you need to make changes? Is it 12 lives lost? Is it $1 billion in damage to the environment? Is it 15 lives lost? At what threshold does something happen where changes have to be implemented? And I think it's one life lost. I think that's one too many. And I can tell you from personal experience that I certainly wish it wasn't my family that was affected. So, thank you.
Thanks so much to you both for that sobering reminder of why we're here, and for the importance of this dialogue.